Hello everyone. Welcome to session 11 of IS Baba's Rapid Revision series of 500 high probable topics for prelims 2020. I'm Preetham Reddy and I'll be dealing with 15 important topics which are very crucial for prelims examination this year in each session. So today's first topic is Chagos Archipelago and Diego Garcia. Yesterday's session, I think topic number 150, we dealt with Reunion Island. So today we will be dealing with Chagos Archipelago and Diego Garcia. So you can see in the figure Chagos Islands or Chagos Archipelago. It is a small archipelago in the Indian Ocean, and they are located almost south to the Maldives archipelago. Right? They are located south to the Maldives. And you have to remember that this chain of islands is the southernmost archipelago of the Chagos Laccadive Ridge. Okay, so I had discussed, like I think in previous sessions when I was discussing with 50th year celebration of Vivekananda Rock Memorial regarding the Tri-Junction, and also I said that time that Rock Memorial, Vivekananda Rock Memorial is somewhere here near the Laccadive Sea, right? So this particular Chagos archipelago is the southernmost archipelago of the Chagos Laccadive Ridge, which is a long submarine mountain range in the Indian Ocean. Okay, so you have to remember few things, that Chagos archipelago, it is located in Indian Ocean. It is south of the Maldives, and it is a group of 7 atolls, and it comprises of more than 60 individual tropical islands, and they are part of this Chagos Laccadive Ridge. And why this Chagos archipelago is important for prelims this year? Because of the dispute between UK and Mauritius. Okay, so you might have read the sovereignty of the Chagos archipelago is disputed between this United Kingdom and Mauritius, and United Kingdom refused to return the Chagos Island to the Mauritius after Mauritius gained independence from the UK in 1968. And now you might have read in newspaper that in 2019 ICJ, that is UN's highest court of justice, it ordered the UK to return the Chagos Island to the Mauritius as rapidly as possible. Okay, but ICJ ruling, you have to remember, it is not binding. That's why there won't be any immediate sanctions or adverse actions which will be taken against the UK. Okay, so ICJ ruling is not binding, you can remember that. And major islands you have to remember from this Chagos archipelago, that is Diego Garcia, Peros Banos, Solomon Islands, Egmont Islands. Okay, and we will try to know about Diego Garcia. Okay, so Diego Garcia, it is the largest island on this Chagos archipelago. Okay, so you can see here Diego Garcia is the largest island on the Chagos Islands of archipelago. Okay, and this Diego Garcia is where the US and UK operate their largest military base. Okay, so you have to remember that US and UK, they operate their largest military base, and they also used this US military base during this US led attack against Afghanistan and Iraq in the 2000s. Okay, so you have to remember that. So know about Diego Garcia. It is island of the British Indian Ocean Territory, and it is militarized atoll just south to the equator, and US has set up its foreign military base here, and both US and UK operate the largest military base. Okay, next important topic is Mediterranean Sea. So Mediterranean Sea, you might be knowing that it is a sea which connects to the Atlantic Ocean, and it is surrounded by the Mediterranean basin, and it is almost completely enclosed by land. Okay, so to the north we can see here we have Europe. Okay, so to the north we have it is surrounded by southern Europe and Anatolia region, and also to the south it is surrounded by countries of North Africa, and east by Levant. Okay, and you should try to remember some countries surrounding the Mediterranean region. Okay, so if we go from clockwise, there is the Spain, France, Monaco, Slovenia, Croatia. Okay, like Bosnia and Herzegovina. Okay, Montenegro, Albania, Greece, Turkey, Syria, right? Lebanon, Israel, Egypt. So there are many countries, so try to remember some of those. And also it is important to remember some important places like Bosporus Strait, Aegean Sea, Sea of Crete, right? And Adriatic Sea, Okay, so there are some important locations, so try to revise those things. Also, in addition, we had read Gaza Strip, which was in the eastern coast of Mediterranean Sea. So you might also, like, it is important to know this year some British overseas territories of Gibraltar. So I'll write here Gibraltar, Akrotiri, and Dekelia. You can Google them. Okay, they all are British overseas territories. Okay, I have given here. So try to remember it. Okay, so know about the Mediterranean Sea and some location. What all countries are bordering with the Mediterranean Sea, and some important states like Bosphorus Straits, Sea of Crete, Aegean Sea, Adriatic Sea, etc. Okay, so next important topic is very important, ICJ. So you might have read many times regarding ICJ during India-Pakistan Kulbhushan case, right? Kulbhushan Jadhav case. You keep reading about the ICJ in the articles, and we'll see what is the difference between ICJ and International Criminal Court. Okay, so ICJ, it is the principal judicial organ of United Nations. So you have to know, this is important. So it is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. And this ICJ was established in 1945 under the Statute of International Court of Justice. Okay, so it was established under the Statute of International Court of Justice, whereas this ICC, it was established according to the Rome Statute. Okay, so here we can be confusing little bit. It can be confusing. So Rome Statute deals with International Criminal Court, whereas ICJ, it has a separate statute of International Court of Justice, and this ICJ has seat at the court. Seat of this particular ICJ is at the Peace Palace in Hague, Netherlands. Okay, so this Hague, Netherlands is important, especially for ICJ, ICC, and even PCA, Permanent Court of Arbitration. Okay, and this ICJ, it is like one of the 6 principal organs of the United Nations. Okay, you have to remember that this ICJ is one of the 6 principal organs of the United Nations. However, it is the only one which is not located in New York. Okay, so it is in Hague, Netherlands. And this ICJ court, it is composed of 15 judges, and these judges are elected for the term of office of 9 years. Okay, so term of office is 9 years, and usually these judges are elected by UNSC, that is United Nations Security Council, and United Nations General Assembly. Okay, and no 2 judges at any given time may be from the same country. You have to note this particular point. And the function of the ICJ is to resolve disputes between sovereign states, and the official language of ICJ are English and French. Okay, so we'll see what is ICC, that is International Criminal Court. So ICC is an intergovernmental organization and international tribunal that sits in the Hague, Netherlands. Okay, so ICC began functioning on 1st July 2002, the date like that time when Rome Statute actually entered into the force. Okay, so you have to remember that ICC, it started like it began functioning after this Rome Statute entered into force, and this Rome Statute is a multilateral treaty that serves as the International Criminal Court's foundational and governing document. Okay, so remember this Rome Statute serves as the ICC's foundational and governing document. And one important thing, states whichever become party to this Rome Statute, they automatically become member states of the ICC. And India is not a party nor a signatory to this ICC. That means India didn't sign Rome Statute. So India is not a part of ICC. Okay, and ICC has jurisdiction to prosecute individuals for international crimes of genocide. Okay, so you have to remember, for genocide, crimes like genocide, crime against humanity, okay, and war crimes. Fourth one was crimes of aggression. Okay, So ICC has jurisdiction to prosecute individuals for the international crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and crimes of aggression. So let's see about crimes against humanity. Okay, internationally, these crimes against humanity are dealt with under the Rome Statute of International Criminal Court, and they are defined as offenders such as murder, extermination, enslavement, deportation, torture, imprisonment, and rape committed as a part of widespread or systematic attack directed against any civilian population. Okay, so deliberately they do certain crimes against some civilian population, so those are considered as offenses under this ICC and crimes against humanity. And since India is not a party to the Rome Statute, which means India is under no obligation at present to enact any domestic legislation dealing with the CAH, that is crimes against humanity. And you have to remember one more thing: India has ratified Genocide Convention, but still it has not enacted it in domestic legislation. So next important topic is Permanent Court of Arbitration and International Tribunal for the Law of Sea. So obviously you would have read some news article regarding Enrique Lexi, where this Italian marines, like they had gunned down, Kerala fisherman. Okay, so in those articles we would have read regarding Permanent Court of Arbitration and also International Tribunal for Law of the Sea. So we'll see what is this Permanent Court of Arbitration. So this PCA was established in 1899 and it is also headquartered at the Hague, Netherlands. And this PCA, that is Permanent Court of Arbitration, is an intergovernmental organization. So it's a intergovernmental organization and it is dedicated to serve the international community in the field of dispute resolution and to facilitate arbitration. Okay, so you have to remember this, that PCA it's dedicated to dispute resolution and also to facilitate arbitration and any form of dispute resolution between different states. And PCA is not a court. Okay, you have to remember this: PCA is not a court in the traditional sense. Okay, but it provides services of arbitral tribunal to resolve disputes that arise out of some international agreements between member states, international organizations, or private properties. Okay, and this important thing, that PCA is not a United Nations agency. Okay, so it is not a United Nations agency, but PCA is an official United Nations observer. Okay, so you have to remember this point also. And PCA has a financial assistance fund which aims at helping developing countries meet part of the costs involved in any international arbitration or other means of dispute settlement offered by this PCA. So they have their own financial assistance fund to help developing countries. Now we will see what is this International Tribunal for the Law of the Seas. So this International Tribunal for the Law of the Seas, it is an independent judicial body and it was established by the UNCLOS, that is United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. Okay, so it's an independent judicial body which is established by UNCLOS, and its major role is to adjudicate dispute arising out of the interpretation and application of this convention, that is UNCLOS. Okay, and we have to remember one more important thing, that this both Permanent Court of Arbitration and ITLOS, they both have agreed to cooperate for relevant legal and administrative matters, particularly those concerned with disputes under Annex 7 of UNCLOS. Okay, so remember that PCA is a intergovernmental organization and it is not a part of UN agency, and also International Tribunal is an independent judicial body and it was established by UNCLOS. So next important topic is, let's know about UNCLOS, that is United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. Okay, so it is international agreement that resulted from the third UN conference on Law of Sea. Okay, so you can remember it as UNCLOS 3. And this particular UNCLOS, they actually define the rights and responsibilities of nations with respect to their use of world's ocean establishing guidelines for businesses, the environment, and the management of marine natural resources. So I'm repeating again, this UN clause defines certain rights and responsibilities of nation with respect to use of world's ocean, management of marine natural resources and its environment. Okay, and this point is little confusing and important. UN has no direct operational role in its implementation. Okay, however, there is a role played by other organizations such as IMO, that is International Maritime Organization, International Whaling Commission, International Seabed Authority. Okay, and you have to remember that this International Seabed Authority was established by the UN Convention. Okay, anyway, major role is played by this. Okay, and you should have revised certain limits and regulations set by this UN clause, such as internal waters, territorial waters, contingency zone, or exclusive economic zone. Okay, so internal waters, it includes all water and waterways inside the land side of the baseline. Okay, so whatever waters and waterways are inside the land side of the baseline, that is inland water, they are called as internal waters, whereas this territorial waters, it includes from baseline 12 nautical miles. Okay, and contiguous zone, it includes an area beyond this 12 nautical miles from the territorial baseline to further 12 nautical miles, that is 24 nautical miles. You can remember that. And exclusive economic zone, EEZ, it includes the area which is extended up to 200 nautical miles from the baseline. Okay, so maybe you can remember these things, and also try to read some, like whatever the information I have provided here in the figure. Okay, so next important topic is Project Netra. So this Project Netra means Network for Space Object Tracking and Analysis. So as I said, it is a network to track space objects, okay, such as like space debris and other thing, so that to safeguard space assets. So this Project Netra is by ISRO, and it is considered as ISRO's early warning system, okay, to safeguard our space assets like our satellites. Okay, and this particular Project Netra, it includes a network of observational facilities like radars, telescopes, data processing units, control centers, right? And the system can spot, track, and catalog objects as small as 10 centimeter. Okay, and also up to a range of 3400 kilometer. Okay, so this particular Project Netra is very important, and it predicts any threat to Indian satellites from space debris and space attacks. So this is what you have to remember with respect to Project Netra. Also remember this Project Netra network, that is telescopes and radars. So they are situated at different locations like Ponmudi in Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala, Mount Abu, Rajasthan, one in deep north Leh, one in northeast region, multi-object tracking radar at Nellore, Andhra Pradesh. The telescope network will be set up under the Directorate of Space Situational Awareness and Management at Bengaluru. Okay, and also ISRO currently depend on NORAD, that is North American Aerospace Defense Command. Okay, so right now ISRO is depending on this NORAD for tracking of space debris and protected satellite. This NORAD is an initiative by USA and Canada. Okay, so this NORAD actually shares selective debris data with many countries. So India also is dependent right now on this NORAD. So now with Project Netra, ISRO should be able to track certain space debris and also predict some threats to our satellites. So next important topic is LOX methane engine. Okay, so LOX means liquid oxygen oxidizer and methane fuel. So ISRO's liquid propulsion system center. Okay, so liquid propulsion system center of this ISRO, it is developing two LOX methane powered rocket engine. So it will be using LOX methane engine, which actually uses methane as fuel and liquid oxygen as oxidizer. Okay, so methane will be used as fuel and liquid oxygen will be used as an oxidizer. Okay, so what is the major advantage of this LOX methane engine, or using the liquid oxygen oxidizer and methane as fuel is it can be synthesized in space. In other words, like methane can be synthesized using water and carbon dioxide in space. Okay, and also methane fuel is non-toxic, whereas the currently which is used by ISRO, that is dimethylene hydrazine and nitrogen tetroxide, it is very much highly toxic. Okay, and next important advantage is easy to store, less bulky, does not leave a residue upon combustion. Okay, if in case there has LOX methane engine, it is developed by ISRO's Liquid Propulsion System Center, and these advantage and applications you can remember. So next important topic is hyperspectral imaging satellites. Okay, so this hyperspectral imaging satellite of ISRO, it is an Earth observation satellite. So first thing what you have to remember is it's an Earth observation satellite, and it is orbiting at 636 km above the surface of the Earth, and it observes Earth's surface in 3 different ranges, including visible, near infrared and shortwave infrared. Okay, you have to remember it observes Earth's surface in 3 different ranges: visible, near infrared and shortwave infrared, in 55 spectral or color bands. Okay, and it is launched in the sun synchronous polar orbit. Okay, and in short we call it as HISIS. Okay, and it enables us to do a CAT scan equivalent of Earth from space. Okay, just remember that all the 3 ranges may, like, we can observe the Earth surface. Okay, and we should know the application of this HISIS. So HISIS is helping to monitor agriculture, forestry, assessment of coastal zones, inland waters, soil, oil and minerals mapping, right? Also military surveillance, etc. So we'll know some basics. So this hyperspectral imaging, it combines digital imaging and spectroscopy. Okay, for this it uses a critical chip called optical imaging detector array, which enables it to provide better defined images that more clearly than regular optical or remote sensing cameras. Okay, so this digital imaging and spectroscopy, we come to know, like, with very good color and resolution, and it can develop better images compared to the regular optical or remote sensing cameras. Okay, so that's the reason this hyperspectral imaging satellite is important. So next important topic is LIGO India. Okay, so there is like INDIGO, that is Indian Initiative in Gravitational Wave Observations. Okay, so this INDIGO is a consortium of Indian gravitational wave physicists. So this consortium of Indian gravitational wave physicists, they are set up to they want to set up this advanced experimental gravitational wave observatory facilities in India. Okay, so you have to remember that INDIGO is a group of Indian gravitational wave physicists, and they want to set up advanced experimental gravitational wave observatory facilities in India, and it is located near Aunda, Nagnath, Hingoli district of Maharashtra. Okay, and this particular LIGO India project, it is piloted by Department of Atomic Energy and Department of Science and Technology. Okay, so it is in Maharashtra, and this LIGO India is planned as a collaborative project between a group of Indian research institutions and LIGO laboratory in the USA, along with some international partners such as Australia, Germany and UK. So you have to remember that it is a collaborative project and a consortium of Indian research institutions and also LIGO laboratory in the USA. Okay, so we'll see what is this LIGO. So it is a massive observatory for detecting cosmic gravitational waves and for carrying out certain experiments. So this LIGO is a massive observatory for detecting cosmic gravitational waves and for carrying out experiments, and the main objective is to use gravitational wave observation in astronomical studies. Okay, so you have to remember LIGO India. Next important topic is Global E-Mobility Program and the recent National Electric Mobility Mission Plan 2020 of India's. Okay, So a new global environmental facility. So GEF you might be knowing. So GEF's new program, that is Global E-Mobility Program. Okay, it was launched at UNFCCC. So United Nations Framework for Combating Climate Change, or Convention for Climate Change. So COP25. So Global E-Mobility Program was launched at this UNFCCC COP25. Okay, and this Global E-Mobility Program, it will help initial set of 17 developing countries to deploy electrical vehicles. Okay, so it will help 17 developing countries initially to deploy electric vehicles. Okay, see, at a very large scale, and also it will help them to improve their air quality and reduce their fossil fuel dependency. And in this 17 developing countries, even India is included. Okay, and we have to know it is UNEP. Okay, so this United Nations Environment Program will implement this particular program in partnership with the International Energy Agency. Okay, so UNEP will implement this particular global e-mobility program with partnership from International Energy Agency, and it supports developing and transitional countries to shift from fossil fuel to electrical vehicles. So next important thing to know is India's National Electric Mobility Mission Plan 2020. So India targeted to achieve 6 to 7 million sales of electric and hybrid vehicles by 2020. So Indian government had targeted to achieve this one, and this goal was set in 2013. Okay, and now under this National Electric Mobility Mission Plan 2020, government has also launched FAME India scheme. So you might have read that faster adoption and manufacturing of hybrid and electric vehicles in India, FAME India scheme. So try to read about FAME India phase 1 and so FAME 1 and FAME 2. Okay, and also government is trying to push to for the sales of electric and hybrid vehicles by GST rates was slashed recently from 28% to 12% without any cess. At the same time, certain tax cuts were also announced. Okay, so that purchase of electrical vehicles in India can increase. Okay, so know about Global E-Mobility Program. It was launched in UNFCCC COP25, and UNEP will implement this program with International Energy Agency, and India is a part of this initial 17 developing countries को जो भी help मिल रहा है. Okay, and in India has also framed this National Electric Mobility Mission Plan. Okay, next important topic is Breathe Life campaign. Okay, I'm predicting this year this question. So Breath Life campaign, it is a global campaign associated with tackling air pollution. So we know that India is facing air pollution, right? And this Breath Life campaign is a global campaign associated with tackling air pollution. And Breath Life is a joint campaign led by WHO, okay, and UNEP or UN Environment and Climate and Clean Air Coalition. Okay, that's the reason I'm predicting this question, because India recently joined this CCAC. Okay, if joining CCAC means they come under this Breath Life campaign. Okay, and 3 strategic goals are there. So to achieve, so this Breath Life campaign, they tell the nations or the countries that they have to build smart cities, and the national governments should commit themselves to achieve the WHO air quality guidelines by 2030 and half the number of air pollution related deaths by 2030, and slow the pace of climate change by 0.5 degrees Celsius by 2050. And this Breath Life campaign, it also aims to build awareness to reduce air pollution and short-lived climate pollutants to meet health and development priorities by 2020, and also to achieve SDG goals, that is Sustainable Development Goals, by 2030. So you have to remember these targets, very important. That is to achieve WHO air quality guidelines by 2030, half the number of air pollution related deaths by 2030, and slow the pace of climate change by 0.5 degrees Celsius by 2050. So next important thing, India joined CCAC in 2019. So finally India formally joined this CCAC, that is Climate and Clean Air Coalition. Okay, So the announcement underlines India's commitment to combat air pollution with solutions oriented approach, and India plans to work with this climate clean and coalition countries on best practices, and also they want to learn from the experiences and they want to effectively implement in India. And we also recently read that India announced NCAP, that is National Clean Air Program. So this NCAP is also like the policy is designed by learning the best practices and experiences from clean like CCAC countries. Okay, and we'll see what is this CCAC. So CCAC is a voluntary global partnership, and it is committed to catalyzing concrete and substantial action so that they can reduce short-lived climate pollutants such as methane, black carbon and hydrofluorocarbons. Already a question has been asked by UPSC on these lines. So CCAC aims to reduce short-lived climate pollutants on methane, black carbon and hydrofluorocarbons. See, already question also came on methane and black carbon, and this year, since we recently read that India is also like trying to prohibit hydrofluorocarbons, sorry, HCFC that was. Okay, anyway, like this year we can expect question on hydrofluorocarbons, because Montreal protocol to ozone depletion substances to prohibit that one, so it focusing on HFCs. Okay, so next important topic is Global Fund for Ecosystem Based Adaptation. Okay, so this particular fund, UNEP, IUCN, okay, so this is UNEP and IUCN, they are set to launch this new fund which is a 20 million euro program on ecosystem based adaptation. Okay, and this fund will be like for the period of 2020 to 2024, and this was also announced in UNFCCC COP25 Madrid. Okay, and the program is funded by Germany. Okay, so Germany announced that it would provide this 20 million for the new UNEP IUCN program, and officially it is titled as Support for the Implementation and Upscaling of Ecosystem Based Adaptation. Okay, so yes, Germany is funding. Okay, and also with partnership from IUCN and UNEP. Okay, and also this Global Fund for Ecosystem Based Adaptation, it aims to provide targeted and rapid support mechanism through seed capital for innovative approaches to achieve this ecosystem based adaptation. Okay, so remember this Global Fund, it is partnership with UNEP and IUCN, and Germany is the one which is actually sponsoring or which announced to provide this 20 million. Okay, and it was announced during UNFCCC COP25, and it is for ecosystem based adaptation. Last topic of this session, that is COP15 UN CBD. Okay, so 2019. Okay, so 2019 में COP15 UN CBD, I think it was in 2020. Yeah, COP15 UN CBD, it was planned for 2020 and it was supposed to be held in China, but it is right now postponed. And simple things you should know: Rio Convention. So what all the three conventions which come under Rio Convention? One is UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, and UNCBD, and we already completed regarding UNCCD, Delhi Declaration, recently. Okay, so CBD COP15, the main agenda is to review CBD's strategic plan for biodiversity 2011 to 2020. So there was this CBD, that is Convention on Biodiversity Strategic Plan. Okay, so CBD COP15 was supposed to review the achievement and delivery of this CBD strategic plan for biodiversity 2011 to 2020, and also final decision was supposed to be taken on the post 2020 global biodiversity framework. Okay, so right now COP15 CBD, it is like virtual summit might be held, or maybe it might be postponed to 2021. Anyway, post 2020 global biodiversity framework is to be taken. Okay, and COP will declare on a comprehensive post 2020 global biodiversity framework, so that it is a stepping stone towards the 2050 vision of living in harmony with nature. Okay, and Cartagena Protocol on biodiversity is important for this year because like 2020 marks 20 years of adopting this Cartagena Protocol on biosafety. Okay, and this Cartagena Protocol of biodiversity, it was adopted in 2000. So now 2020 marks like 20 years. Okay, and this Cartagena Protocol, it is an international agreement which aims to ensure safe handling, transport, and use of living modified organisms. Okay, so remember that this Cartagena Protocol, which is an international agreement, it aims to ensure the safe handling, transport, and use of living modified organisms resulting from modern biotechnology that may have adverse effect on biological diversity and as well as human health. Also try to know regarding Nagoya Protocol on access and benefit sharing. So it is an international agreement which aims at sharing the benefits and arising from the utilization of genetic resources in a fair and equitable way. Okay, and this Nagoya Protocol, it entered into force from 2014. Okay, so these two protocols are important, which is under the UN CBD. Okay, so thank you for watching, and do subscribe to the channel and do comment if you have any queries. Thank you.